We are here today, actually in our club gym. This is really close to my house, way convenient. It's saving me a lot of time because I can literally walk out my door and it's like 30 seconds. So I've been training quite a bit here this last week just because we've been moving house. But the downside, it doesn't quite have all of the exercises that both Shelley and I are used to using in Crunch. Shelley's got a Crunch membership as well. We're going to go through some training today. I'm working from my Bikini, Road to Bikini program. Shelley's doing a slightly different program at the moment. So some of our exercises overlap and we've tried to kind of save the ones that we know we can do together for today. But we're going to have to make a few compromises just based on what's available. So I know that you guys are probably have been in similar situations, whether you're traveling or you want to go and work out with a friend and you don't know, how to make alterations and what's a good change or substitution, or is it okay to completely change out the muscle group, So I'll try and talk you through those things today and explain, why I'm making this decision or why that's okay or why it might not be. So I'm excited. I'm excited to train with you.
I know, about time.
Okay guys, so first and foremost, this gym does not have a barbell, which is kind of funny, but it's got a lot of other things, and the good thing is it does have a Smith machine. So I've basically been training out all of my free barbell stuff for Smith. So I'm doing RDLs, I'm on Smith. If I had scheduled a squat, I'm on the Smith. So I actually did my hip thrusts last week using the Smith machine. But today I think I'm going to give it a go because Shelley has got a B stance, or a staggered stance, I guess we'll call it, hip thrust. So I think that'll be much easier with this shortened bar because it distributes the load, it keeps it a little bit more centered and helps with stability. If any of you have tried to do a staggered stance hip thrust using a longer barbell, like a full-sized, you'll find it's very unstable. Like the weight kind of rocks on your hips. So by keeping the weight a little bit closer to the center of gravity, it'll be a whole lot easier. So we'll go ahead and set this up. This is probably very obvious, but don't do a hip thrust with just the barbell. Please get some kind of padding. The stronger you get, the more load your glutes are going to be able to handle. And I can tell you now, this makes such a difference. I've had to just, not be a wuss sometimes in a gym when I haven't had these. Shelley actually got me onto this, so thanks, Shelley. $10 on Amazon for those that are new to the channel. Yeah, otherwise it digs into your hips. It's not pleasant, is it?
No.
No. So this is something that the gym has. It's called a squat pad, but I don't think I recommend using squat pads, folks. Even for your squat, you should be creating a shelf with your back. It takes the bar, again, the center of gravity, it pushes it away from your body and just makes it more unstable. But for this exercise, it's good. So
I will have to put
some blocks.
Yeah, something under my butt.
Yep. Nice work. How's that weight?
Right. Whoa. Yeah, have to figure that out.
Ooh, something just popped.
That's good.
Better now than later.
Yeah.
I have got so much food on this top, it's disgusting. I don't know how that happened. And cat hair.
You're not even dieting.
I'm not even dieting. What is wrong with me?
The proper positioning when you're sitting is to have it right underneath your shoulder blades. And so when you get heavier, you're not having to worm the barbell up. And so, but I don't know if, we'll see if this works.
Might be a little bit too high.
It might be too high, yeah.
We'll see. All right. See how that
Usually
goes.
put like a 25-pound plate underneath my rear.
Well, if that doesn't work, if that's too high, we can try one of the other weight plates.
Yeah. Woo! Yeah, it's gonna be too high.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so the problem we're currently having is that this tails off in ways. So when you want to get your scap on the back, it's not symmetrical.
One
You're
of
like
them's hanging
thrusting
up.
like this. So let's just spin it around. Do you want the skinny end or the wide end? Wide?
Probably the wide end if we can make that work.
Here we go.
Yes.
Big changes.
Trial and error.
All right, what do you want? 25?
Yeah.
Right now, as I'm doing these warm-up sets, I'm thinking about, okay, what's my RPE or repetitions in reserve, and really try to do some like self-assessment here, like what was that and could I go more? So rather than looking at the weights, really just getting in tune with, you know, how difficult that was on a scale of 1 to 10. So I guess that's what we'll both be doing today. Good, see how Shelley's tucking her chin? She's kind of keeping her head down. She's not looking up at the ceiling. It's one of the main things. And also she's tucking her tailbone under and really squeezing through her glutes. And you want to avoid hyperextending your back. Good set.
Whew.
How's that?
Good.
Good weight?
Good. Yeah.
You gonna go up? Stay the same.
I'll probably stay the same just because it's different
Yeah, uncomfortable.
and awkward.
There's so much sponge. There's so many layers of fluff. Oh, okay, now this is too high.
Yeah, that's one.
We'll get there, fucking slowest set ever. So how long are you at the gym today, girls? 3 hours. It was 1 hour just on hip thrusts. The benefits of training at the same place. You know your setup, you know the machines,
Yes.
you're not wasting time fucking around. Well, at least I know for next time. But
You
thanks
can
for
always
being
use
here to
the-
support me.
You can use the leg extension too.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, it's been a while. I'm really feeling that in my hamstrings today, actually. Oh, good job. Nice work. Drive through those heels. Well, I've got a deload this week, so I've got 2 sets.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. It's not a bad week.
Oh, jeez.
It's like a love-hate with a deload. You kind of get in so quickly and you're like, oh, I didn't really do very much this week. But man, they are so worth it. I would have made so much more progress, I think, over the years if I had have actually taken some rests here and there, because you end up working through fatigue and then your performance drops, your volume goes down, or you regress. It's not a good place to be, so plan those deloads, folks.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Stopping at 2.
I'll do a 3rd set with you. I'll do a 3rd set.
Mystery loves company, you know?
Yep. I'll just do this, I think, this compound exercise. Oh no, what the heck. I'll do the whole set with you. Ready? Nice. Good job, Kelly. Come on.
Get up.
Oh my gosh.
I feel tired.
So heart rate, guys, if you are new to the channel, I always talk about heart rate. So one of the biggest mistakes I made personally, and I still see a lot of people that are new to resistance training making, is rushing through their workouts. So I think there's still a bit of a misconception amongst a lot of people that if your heart rate's up really high and you're sweating, and like if you're not sweating, like you're not working hard enough. But they're training completely different, I guess, systems. So resistance training isn't cardiovascular training, or it's certainly not meant to be. For most of us, if your goal is building muscle, you're in the gym to build muscle. We're not here to, improve our cardiovascular fitness. So slow down, take the time between your sets to get your heart rate back down and recovered, so that you can actually continue to hit the same load. Because if I tried to rush through this, like my heart rate's back down to 111 now, I'll probably try and go when I get to 110 or 100. But I wouldn't be able to maintain these weights if I just rushed. And yes, I probably will get my heart rate up and I might start sweating a bit more, but that's not indicative or predictive of your hypertrophy outcomes. So if you're in the gym and your goal is to build muscle, don't rush. Oh my God. So I've got a question for you, Shelley. Do you feel that in your lower glutes or your upper glutes?
I feel my lower glutes. I don't feel it as well with this setup as I do like on the booty builder or the glute drive.
Yeah. So I think one of the key differences for where you will feel it is your feet positioning. So in this exercise, we're kind of starting from a position where our feet are parallel, or I've got a 90-degree bend. So when I'm coming up here, when I squeeze, it only really targets like a very small range from the top of my hamstring to the bottom of my glute. I'm not really getting any of that upper glute. But if you change the feet angles, if your feet are on a plate like this, you've got a lot more forward knee travel and you're more likely to gain a little bit more in the upper glute. And most of those machines, God, I can't even talk. It's been a while. The Peloton's getting dusty. It's been about 10 days. Most of the machines have like an angled foot plate. But again, the setup for some people is going to be totally different. And Shelley has to put weight plates on the glute, something like the glute drive, so that she can actually get that 90-degree bend. Otherwise her foot, she was like this. So she had to get her feet back in and up a bit closer. So yeah, got to play around with this, guys. And if you have questions about that, you are welcome to ask. Up next, Shelley has an RDL. So yours, is it normally a barbell or you use Smith?
Barbell.
Okay. So we're gonna adapt today. We have two options here. We could technically use this lighter, smaller bar, but just compensate for the fact that it's a smaller bar. So find out the weight and then make sure that you load your plates correctly so that you're matching what you previously did. Do you have a preference? Do you want to use?
Let's do Smith.
Smith? This is good because you can actually get full range of motion. So I can get all the way down here and that's a nice stretch. But there are a handful of Smith machines where the catch position, it's quite high. So I would only get to about here and then I'm already at the bottom of the machine. So again, be mindful, play around. If something doesn't get full range of motion, don't do it. Like, you're wasting your time. You're only training half of that muscle's full potential. So you're gonna limit your gains. So this is good. All right, well, I'll give this a go as well so we don't have to adjust the weight. So my program calls for a standard 2 feet RDL, but to save some struggles, and I'm not the one competing tomorrow, so I'll do
tomorrow. You mean
in 11 weeks. So
hopefully I'm not either.
I'm still training my hamstrings. It's fine. So that would be an appropriate compromise. And I guess the benefits of doing like a single leg versus a 2 leg is that you can bring out weaknesses. So I know for me, I definitely had a weaker left hamstring. I tore it off the bone when I was young. So this is one of those things where like over the years, it's slowly kind of caught back up. But for anyone else out there, it's a really good idea to do unilateral movements to help with any potential imbalances, and it can really just help overall with your strength and hypertrophy.
You may want to add some weight to that.
You reckon?
Yeah.
I haven't done it in a while. Let me just do this first set. It's a deload. It's an RPE 7. You go to 12?
Huh?
10 or 12?
10.
Okay. You would have seen me shimmy back a bit. I got to the bottom and it hit my shin. So make sure that you are at an appropriate distance for your flexibility. Last thing you want to do is get halfway down and realize you've snapped your hamstrings. So this variation is probably better suited for a beginner. So if you haven't done a staggered stance RDL before, perhaps you've just done a 2-arm dumbbell stance or you've used a barbell, my recommendation would actually be to go next step up to the Smith machine, because there's obviously less stabilizing required because the bar moves in a nice single straight plane of motion. So start here. Once you're feeling really comfortable on the Smith machine, then you can step back to the free barbell for staggered stance. That would be my pathway to experience levels. Apparently my hamstrings are really too thick for bikini.
That's what you said.
Yeah. So
you thought it was your quads.
Here's me thinking all along it was my quads. So apparently I've got thick hamstrings, like this way. I forget what plane that is. It's been a hot minute since I've done my planes. But anyway, this way is definitely thick. They're not wide, but it does mean that I have to back off like hamstring. Well, I don't need to do as much, basically. More glutes, yay!
I'm the opposite reaction. I don't like, oh.
Okay. I always get a head spin. It's like anything where you go horizontal to vertical. I must be dehydrated. All right, so we clearly have a conflict with our sessions right now. So I'm going to jump in with Shelley and we're going to do a kickback, machine kickback. This is primarily, well, actually it probably depends. Traditionally, this would be mostly upper glute. So the working leg, she's really getting that shelf, but also a little bit on the medial side because she's got her toe turned slightly out. But again, depending on your body dimensions, someone really short, it's probably primarily just the top. But if you get someone that's taller and they're elongated a little bit, it will probably hit a little bit more of the lower glute. But there's something to be said for where you feel it. So keep that in mind when you're doing exercises. If you notice that something is targeting your upper glute more than your lower, and that's what you're trying to work on, like do more of that type of exercise. Like experiment with the machines, foot positionings, body height moving around until you get it in that spot. Because a lot of the EMG randomized control trials, and actually a friend of ours, Brett Contreras, has done a lot of work on muscle activation. And yeah, he said basically when a subject would report that they could feel it more in a certain area, it was generally very accurate to how the EMG would actually respond. So if you're not feeling it, you're probably not working it. The other area that you may feel working for this exercise is your quad. So when Jelly is bringing her knee back in here, that's actually lengthening her quad. Her quad is now lengthened. So she's having to contract that quad only when it's in the hip flexed position. So that is why some people really find this one hard, because it does get you back into quite a flexed starting point. So it's not, again, the machines aren't that well designed, but clearly doing enough. Do you feel that in your quad a little bit? Yeah.
Especially as the reps get higher.
Yeah. Like in this position here, I can definitely feel my quad lengthened. But as I extend out further, the tension is no longer here. It's just in my glute. So if you have a machine that doesn't put you in that flex position, it's probably a good thing. All right. Yeah, that is all upper glute here for me, which is good because that's where I want to grow. So typically when we think about like the quadrants of the glute, horizontal hip extension exercises, so something where you're like a reverse hyperextension, they tend to be a combination of upper and lower glute. So if any of you have used those machines where you're kind of laying and you're swinging your legs back, that's a good combination of both. But vertical hip extension, so you might be doing like a cable kickback, or this is probably a little bit of an exception because of the position we're in, but if you're doing a cable where you're like this, that tends to be a little bit more lower glute. So use that information as you will, but there are some subtle differences. So I know I've told you this, guys, before, or some of you at least that have been watching, but I know there's always new people joining in. So obviously these all have different positions. So if I just got on and started using this in this position, first off I wouldn't be able to push that, but it's going to put me in a really hyper extended, see how like lordotic I am here? Like that's not targeting my glutes at all. That's just tension in my lumbar spine. So you'll notice as I take this down and I come down a little bit lower, I'm lengthening my spine, and now when I extend my leg back, I've lost all of that arch, and now it's actually targeting my glute. So I know that you'll see people in the gym and they're probably standing here doing a nice, very pretty looking kickback, but it's not doing its job. So don't be afraid to look like a spastic. I'm giving you permission to get down a bit lower, get your chest on that bar, on the pad, so that you can have a nice neutral spine. We want to avoid hyperextending, unless you want to train your lower back. Squatting is enough for that.
All the machines have the standard.
Yeah, and even look, it shows this stupid picture here with this bimbo. Clearly she's a very terrible model, but she's not doing it right. All right, guys, so this is where Shelley and I are parting our ways. I have got a overhead press, so I could use a variety of different pieces of equipment in here. I could do a regular dumbbell press if I wanted to. I could probably use some of the machines, but machines for me at this point, I feel like they're not that challenging. I would much rather get a little bit more stabilization from everywhere. It's a little bit more energy taxing as well to go to something that's a free bar or free dumbbell. So that's where I'm going to head to. Shelley, are you using the Smith machine for your good mornings now?
Yeah.
All right, so I will go and use the dumbbells today for an overhead press, but I could also use a kneeling or a seated Smith machine press too. So that's also another good option. Good old wrist wraps, guys. So today I might do a slightly different variation of a shoulder press. Obviously you can do your normal alternating, which again, that's a little bit more cardiovascular. I think if you're trying to work on strength and build muscle, like there's no wrong reason to do a single arm or an alternating, but I think if we're trying to work on strength and symmetry, I like a 2-arm press. So I'll do that, but I'm going to do some pause reps. So a nice 3-second tempo on the way down, so some tempo, and then a 2-second pause at the bottom, and I'm going to shorten my rep range to about 8. It's just increasing time under tension, but also kind of working with some slightly heavier weights. So just mixing it up, trying to give myself some diversity, and of course the good old wraps for wrist support to take care of my decrepit 33-year-old wrists, which honestly feel like, I can't imagine what they're going to feel like when I'm 60, but my dad has osteoarthritis, and I think everyone in his family has some kind of bone issue, so I'm probably just about due for that. So lifting will help me. That was harder than I thought it was going to be. I picked that weight because I thought it would be my warm-up weight. Oh no. So there you go, here's a tip. If you're doing tempo or pause, obviously the time that your muscles are working and active are longer than a regular tempo, so your strength is going to be less. So you won't be able to perform the same number of reps as that you normally would. So this is a good weight for a working set for me. Also, I have an interesting fact for you. So something that I was doing some reading on, probably earlier this week actually. I've seen a few posts kind of flying around the social media space, and you hear of it all the time, especially amongst competitors, is that squatting or big compound movements are not appropriate for competitors in either fitness or bikini because they create like a thick and blocky waist. So obviously science background, I like evidence, and I try to make sure that everything I say is supported with some kind of, data. And it was really interesting. So there was a couple of randomized controlled trials, and they were using EMG for, I guess, assessing muscle activation. So the one that I was reading first was a comparison between an isometric core movement, so it was a plank, so just a regular plank, and they were testing the amount of core activation versus a squat in trained athletes. And guess what? The amount of core activation between those two exercises was no different. There was no significant difference. The only thing that was significantly different was for squats. You have a little bit more spina recti activation. So you're getting a little bit more of your lumbar muscles involved under those heavier loads. Show overhead press, that's how I thought of it. So the other one was comparing core activation for a basic, I think it was a plank as well, but then with an overhead press. And guess what? Overhead press, also same muscle activation as a core and as a squat and a deadlift. So for the people that have made claims that, you should stop doing all of your, core movements and you should stop doing all of your squatting because they're going to give you a thicker and blocky waist, it's actually not true. Even something like a Bulgarian lunge, that exercise, so when you're coming down like this, because there's so much stabilization, that had significantly more core activation than a squat. Like a good athlete is going to, over time, develop a strong core naturally. It's like just progression. That's how hypertrophy happens. So if you're developing, stronger quads through squatting or whatever their movements are, like over time, guess what's going to have to work more as well to support your leg strength? That's right, your core. Guess what happens as your shoulders get stronger? Your core is going to get stronger. So you can't really have one without the other. So it's an interesting dichotomy, I guess, in ways, because unless you just decide to take all those exercises out to keep a skinny waist. But for the most part, I think the changes that you start to see in athletes as they get closer to stage, which obviously their physique is improving, it's because they're getting leaner. Like they're losing body fat. I look like I have a thick and blocky waist right now, but I'm also carrying like all my body fat through my midsection. As I get leaner, it's gone. So it's kind of an unfair, it's a straw man argument. So many people will put posts up like, look at this person now compared to what they were doing before. It's like they've just lost body fat, So anyway, that's my rant. Let me go and do this core activation exercise. All right, I have a row up next. I've been focusing a little bit more on close grip, on narrow rows. I've already got quite a wide and thick muscular back. I don't really need a whole lot more width. What I'm going to aim to do if I compete again, it will be bringing my shoulders out to kind of create that illusion. So any back work that I've been doing is primarily narrow grip, which essentially targets, it's a little bit more rhomboid focus. Traps are going to get in there as well, but I'm keeping most of my positions low and wide to really get down in this area. So they don't have a machine here that I like. I tried it out the other day and it's not my favourite, so I might try and set something up here on the cables. Okay, I need something to stabilise my feet, and I think I know what I could use. So we'll do one more set. Slightly heavier weight because that was probably like an RPE 5. So this week my intensity should have been a 7. So I would have been cheating if I walked away from that and didn't put it up. So yeah, sometimes you have to catch yourself and call yourself out. I've definitely had weeks where I'm like, are you really going to do that? You're going to walk away on that weight? And I'm like, choose your battles. Alrighty guys, I think I've got knee extension and then a glute adduction to finish. So you can only do a knee extension so many ways. We'll do that first, but then I want to show you the two different options if you are limited with your equipment in the gym, and some band alternatives as well if you want to still train your butt and you don't have a cable or a machine to do it on. So I was definitely utilising these a lot during lockdown. So we'll show you those in case you ever find yourself stuck in a hotel or lockdown again, who knows. So I have put this on my Instagram story multiple times now. So I'm sorry if you're an Instagram story follower, but I want to make sure that the YouTubers know this too. Before we even consider your training load, make sure that you set your machine up in the correct spot. You want to make sure that your quads have got tension on them before you start this exercise. So I'm going to put that as far forward as the machine permits. So yes, it's on the like most aggressive setting, and you can see here I've got a little bit of tension. I can bring that seat forwards. Now I can add a bit more tension by pulling that up to a higher position. So this is an okay machine. It's not great. I know that here could be tighter, and the way that we would achieve that is we'd keep pushing this part so it comes back in underneath you. If your machine is starting you in this position where you've got a 90-degree bend, do not worry about using that machine. It's not a good fit for you because there's no tension on your quads for half of the movement. It's just like a half rep. So you want to make sure that it is all the way under, and now you're training a full range of motion. So this is okay. It's not the best, but oh, it still burns. Shelley, you can have the burn machine. It's always interesting watching someone else get on the same piece of equipment you've used and they're like, what are you doing? Because their limbs are so different. Notice Shelley's arms are actually on the handles. Some of us can reach handles, others can't. Job, Shelley, come on. Squeeze those quads. And you know what? We're talking about this when we've been out and trained together, wherever we've been training, and you've always said how much this makes you feel sick and want to vomit. Yeah. I think it is because you are able to get full range of motion. I just can't on a lot of them because they don't, whatever is wrong with this shape.
It's the machine, not the,
no,
not the
sure?
physique.
Okay. Oh, I can actually hold this. I was holding there before. Okay.
So now that you're training bikini, are you going after progressive overload as aggressively as we have in the past?
I will, but only on certain muscle groups. So I honestly I have had to stop training my arms. Haven't done a bicep curl in 3 months. Yeah. I've just dropped the volume, so I'm just having to make up all of that with extra cardio. But yeah, I'll still have to go hard so that I can keep my energy expenditure up, but not from a gym perspective. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Do you like that? Because I know how you like to train.
I know. You know what? I think I've just started pushing myself in the cardio, but that's like, you and I both know about like how hard you can push for a HIIT session. It's like you can taste the blood in your mouth. So I don't know. I think they're intimidating in different ways. Yeah. Yeah. It's been okay. I haven't had to kill myself yet on the cardio, but it's like you develop that fitness so that you know you've got to go harder every time you get on the bike.
I'm not at that point in my prep yet where I'm tasting blood in my cardio.
What? That doesn't happen to you every time?
I have backed off dramatically in my intensity.
It's important to have those little breaks though. You've got to save the hard work for when it's needed. Let's go here. So I was in the gym the other week and I had set on my program a machine abduction. So where you're pushing out, just a little bit more lateral glute, which is important. but I don't have that machine here. And I also didn't have my ankle straps to do one on the cable. So I'm like, what can I do? And I tried to do a side press, like a leg press, and it wasn't getting it. So I got on here and was experimenting. So I don't know if you've got this piece of equipment, but I really like it. Shelley was just using this before. So you kind of want to get down nice and low. I like wrap my arm underneath. And then it's a little hard to get it off just because you're in such a flexed position here. Once it's out, you kind of put your chest on the bench, and then you're not coming all the way in. See how the weight plate's nowhere near the bottom? Just coming to this position here and extend out. So that's really getting that medial part of my glute. You can hear my hips popping. So this is not a bad one. When you want to swap sides, so gently lower it in. Just make sure that you remember to flip it over. I did my first set and I forgot to move it. So I came over and I was pushing off the front instead of here. So remember to flip it round. Otherwise you might hit a bit of a snag. Okay, but I'm not going to do that today. I've done it 3 times this week. All right, so last on the list for today was the abduction rather. So you can get these from Amazon or whatever country you're in. Hopefully you've got a good online next day delivery service. Just carry them around with you, because if you've got a gym, like I remember I used to rely on the gym to have them, and then like they just get stolen or they get put in weird places. So it's going to take that all the way to the bottom. Let's start with this leg. Something else that you can do, I've got my knees. If I had my knee sleeves here for squatting, I would put my knee sleeves on right now and I would put them around my ankle. And the reason I would do that is it gives you a bit of protection from the metal, because as you get stronger, obviously you're going to use a more challenging load. And this doesn't feel very good when you've got a heavy weight on there. So yeah, I always just throw my knee sleeves on and I put this exercise last. And then maybe get necrotic ankles because I'll forget to take the knee sleeves off. So I haven't used this machine before, so I'll test the weight. All right, so you want to make sure that you get down in a good like athletic stance. Oh yeah, that's good. 2. This is a cue for me. I put my hand here to remind me where I'm meant to be working. And that's exactly where it's working. It's a little nicer when you've only got 2 sets, and it's also nice when you're not trying to build muscle. So if you guys have any questions about any of the movements we did today, or maybe you just have a training related question and you need some troubleshooting. You've got equipment at home but you're not quite sure how to target X muscle group based on what you have access to. So please feel free to leave me a comment. I'm happy to jump in and help you guys out. I am most active on Instagram. I just caught this out of the side of my eye. This is the other thing I was going to show you. So, undo that. Won't come off. But if you've got bands at home, you can do the same exercise with your band. So you would loop these on, attach your thing here, loop this around a base, so you'd get it like this, pull it through so that it's attached, and then you can literally do the same thing with your band. Just make sure that you've got something, maybe a chair. So I remember I would hold it, we have a Rogue squatting, what are they called? Anyway, we've got a machine at home that's very sturdy. And I was holding onto that, and I'd have a chair just in front of me to help stabilize. So you can definitely use your bands. This one's a bit too thick. I would recommend starting out with the thinnest band just to get comfortable with the movement, and then you can progress to the little thin black one or red, depending which brand you've got. So yeah, anyway, like I said before, I got distracted with band. That is all for me today. I hope that this workout was helpful. If you've got questions, please feel free to ask. And until next time, I'll see you then.